Hi, I'm Tom, and this is a UPE video on Python for loops. So let's just jump right in with an example. Let's say we have a list of numbers from 1 to 9. Alright, and let's just make sure that this works. Just going to print out the entire list. Okay, after saving, it works. So let's say instead of printing out the entire list, we wanted to print out each element in the list. So to do that, print numbers at 0, and now we have to copy and paste 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Alright, there we have it. We printed out numbers 1 through 9, each on their own line. Now, this was actually a lot of typing, and I didn't like doing it. And it could get worse, say, if numbers was instead of 1 through 9, it was 1 through 500. So Python has a way of nicely dealing with this. What we can do is we can do for x, or for number, in numbers, print number. And we get the same results, but with a lot less writing. Now, let's take a second and actually go over what a for loop is. So, we go through the list numbers, and number is just a variable that gets assigned the first value of the list. We then go through this indented block here, in which we print out the number, and the number takes on the next element in the list, so on and so forth until it's gone through all the list. So it stays the same for this entire block, so we can actually print out each number twice. So you print out print out the number 1 twice before going on to 2 and then on to 3. So let's go on to another example. With, say, students. And we can just print out each student the same, just like we did with numbers. Alright, so let's print out every student in this list. For x in students, print x. Alright, we just print out every student. Well, we can actually get fancier with this. Let's draw attention to my name. So if name equals Tom, print A, that's me. And that didn't work because I used name instead of x. That still didn't work. Well, why didn't that work? Well, that's because this if statement isn't indented aligning with this print statement. So if we indent it, we have, hey, that's me. So we can go on and do some additional things with a function in Python called range. What range does is it actually generates a list of numbers and that you can then manipulate. So let's generate a list of numbers starting at 1 and going to 9. Range works the second number, it generates numbers just up to but not including this second number here. Let's see what that gives us. 1 through 9, just like we expected. And so let's do for x in range 1 through 9, print x. So this is just like our first example. Let's say instead we wanted to print out every odd number, or every other number. Well, range can take an optional second argument, which is how it changes. By default, it goes 1 plus 1, 2 plus 1, again and again, until it gets to this number where it stops. So instead of going up by 1, we'll go up by 2. And this gives us all of the odd numbers. And this can work with anything. We can do it with students as well. So for x in range starting at 0 up to the length of the list of students, increasing by 2, print out that student. Oops. This is just the number in the range. We actually have to have it go into the list of students. So, trying this again, we have Bob, Adam, and Ted. Okay, so let's say you want both this number here, or let's say you want to know more than just the value in the list. So we can do for x in enumerate students and x. And what enumerate will do is it will take all the elements in the list and create a tuple of the value of that, or the index of that element and the value. So here we have Bob is the first element, so it has an index of 0 and the value of Bob. So going back to the numbers example, let's say we wanted to square every number in the list. For x in numbers, or enumerate numbers at x at 0, which is the index, equals numbers at 1, which is the value, times numbers at 1. And let's just print that back out. For 16 for x in so the reason this didn't work is because we're doing just numbers at 1 instead of numbers at x at 1. So with that little tweak, we have so then we multiply by the first number times itself. And there we have all the squares from 1 to 9. Well, this is kind of cumbersome. You have to know where each value is in x, and it's just messy in my opinion. So we can actually make this a little bit neater. with for index value and enumerate numbers at index is equal to the value at that index times itself. Same result, a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier to read and understand. So let's go on to something a little bit different, and let's try and print out a pyramid of stars. Well, to do that, we're going to put a for loop inside of a for loop. So for x in range 0 to 10, we're going to print out level and then we're going to print out a bunch of stars. So for y in range x to 10, we're going to print out a single star. This comma, by the way, just prevents print from going to a new line. And then we're going to print out just a new line. Now the way this for loop works is x takes on the value 0 to begin with. It then executes this print statement with x being 0, and then it goes into another for loop where x is still 0 and print out a bunch of stars, and then it'll print out a new line before it goes back up to the top where x will then take on the value of 1. So let's see what this actually prints out. And here we have a nice upside down half pyramid thing with levels. So this actually concludes this first lecture on for loops in Python. Check out the YouTube channel for additional videos as they become available, and happy coding!